Welcome to my universe. You can read articles at holonity.com or you can visit my YouTube channel Holonity. Everything here is copyrighted by Andreas and Bjørndal. Let us look at the archetype the old. And I will just remind you that the old has nothing to do with old age. You can be dominated by the archetype the old at any age, and you can be a man or a woman, a girl or a boy. So we will start with looking at some key words, and then we will look into them more in detail. There is something serious, like proper, classic or conservative, about this archetype. People which are dominated by the old have this kind of quality about them. They can be perceived as rigid, controlled, like dominated by duty and being a dominating or authoritative kind of person. Often they will feel isolated, estranged, or inhibited, and they can even feel guilt because they have high demands, and it can go to shame and feeling dirty. They can easily get stuck, fixed, and particularly on things that has happened in the past. They are towards the chilly side, they are cold. They can feel constricted by circumstances, by what they need and have to, and the feeling of duty. And they can be cold as a person as well. Themes of death, coffins, and hell are also related to the old. It can be they might be afraid of such things, or they might have a kind of interest for those kind of themes. The color is dark blue, black, or indigo, and they might like to wear these clothes or have things with that color, or they might even be afraid of the dark. There is a hardness and induration and degeneration that often can happen in the body of this kind of person. So, the old, as you can see, has a few kind of qualities that we will look into more closely. We will also see and explain the illustrations that you can see here. Let's start with cold. Coldness, as you can see from the arrows, is a constricting kind of energy or quality. When you get cold, you want to be cozy, put on clothes, or put your limbs closer to your body. You put yourself together. A cold person can mean both a cold person as a person and a chilly person. Often you will feel constricted when things are cold, when there are cold people around you, when you are met with coldness, when there is cold outside. And cold itself has a constricting kind of energy or quality. And coldness makes things go slow. Delay, slowness is a strong theme in the old. They will feel things are going slow, things are delayed in their life, or they will be slow themselves. A slow person is often a reserved person. And coldness a cold person is often a reserved person. A cold person, or the cold quality itself, is a quality that condensates, concentrates. Again, you see this constriction in the quality. So coldness also gives structure. Coldness is night and winter. We often experience that the night is colder and the winter is colder. And people tend to get colder when they are older as well. A cold quality gives a feeling of isolation, and coldness can also can make you feel inhibited. When it's cold, you don't expose yourself so easily. You don't go out. Observing is also a strong feature in this archetype. People that are dominated by the old are observing. To see something clearly, you need a distance. You need a distance in time, a distance in awareness, or a distance in space. So when you observe something that has a clear surface, it is easy to see what it is. If something is dim and foggy and unclear and not having such a clear structure, it is not so easy to perceive it. Something which is, hard, structured, with a clear surface is easy to observe. An observing person often is a person who is in control. It can be a person which is ascetic, because an ascetic person needs to be observing, needs to be in control. When you are observing, you are making a kind of distance to other people. To see things clearly, you have to have a certain kind of distance. So an observing person can also be perceived as distant, or even inhibited, repressed, or suppressed. So we will move over to serious. Serious persons are also cold often, and they are also quite reserved. They can feel guilt easily, because a serious person has certain demands to himself. They want to be proper, and if they do something wrong, they can easily feel guilt, even shame, and feeling dirty. A serious person is like controlling himself, and in that sense can be experienced as distant, secretive, isolated, or, mainly being suppressed, holding back, subdued. And of course, mainly a serious person is a person in control. It's a rigid person. A serious person is responsible, has a kind of natural authority around them. And they can be perceived as old. A serious child is perceived as older than their biological age. Seriousness is something which is more dense, more heavy, and even more hard. So let's move to hard. Hard is, as you can see from the illustration, like a hand coming and cramping together clay or making a snowball from snow. Hardness gives induration and degeneration. Everything hard and solid, materialized, is related to the archetype, the old. Hardness gives structure. Hardness gives structure. It makes things dense, concentrated. It's a kind of materialization. A hard person is a person which is in control, which can be also hard on himself and be ascetic. And in your body, the hardest part is your skeleton. So, structure. Structure is a key word for the archetype, the old. They are structure in their mind. They are structure in their way they relate emotionally. They are very structured in their lives. Even their body, is perceived as compact, dense. So structure is everything dense, everything solid, matter. Concentration, condensation, solidification, materialization, makes things structured. In the beginning, the universe was just, fire, full of energy. And as the universe, evolved more and more, and we'll talk about, ages of times, then we saw eventually galaxies, and around the galaxies, or in the galaxies, we saw solar systems and planets, and some of these planets condensed into gas, some into fluids, and finally some of them even became materialized and solid. So as we condensate and materialize, we get more and more structure. A structured thing also has a clear surface, a skin, a cover. Structure also is something which has to do with control. There is a strong relation between being structured as a person and having control, or being rigid as a person. So let's look at black. Black is something serious. A priest would like dress up in black. Black is something we dress up for a funeral, for death. The night and death and winter is related to blackness. But it could be dark, dark blue like indigo as well. The old as an archetype likes black, likes to wear black, or they might be afraid of it. Blackness is also, when it comes to emotions, what we call depression. Death, the devil, and Satan is often like related with the color black. And the evil or dark forces, the person, the old, can feel like, close or interested or feeling like attracted to this kind of qualities, or they have a fear of death, of the dark, of ghosts. The night is often like a colder aspect, as we already spoke about, and death and the old is closely related. So, stuck. The old is stuck. Any kind of structure is something which is stuck, fixed. And often when things are stuck or fixed, they have already existed some time. They have been there in the past. The old as an archetype is often stuck in the past. They can dwell on past disagreeable occurrences, things that happened, and they can feel guilt about it or feel bad about it. They cannot let it go. So old people often would be like stuck in the past, or they would easier remember their past. And a stuckness can also be perceived in the old in their body. They cannot be so free. The body is constricting them and making them more stuck. Stuckness is a quality of control as well. And stuckness can be, as we already said, on something that has happened and you can feel guilt around it. A stuck person often has a quality of being suppressed, repressed, subdued, and limited. Rigidity is a very strong feature in the archetype the old. It's a person which is rigid, has control, feels responsibility, and has a discipline. They are often ruled by duty. They struggle, they work. All the modal verbs like shall and like or should and have to are something they feel is the rule of the world. They feel domination or are a dominating person. They can feel obedience to the rules, renunciation, or they can be a person in authority. Often they will be ascetic and they will feel the suffering and the need for suffering in life. This control makes them inhibited or repressed. It makes them distant or even secretive as a person. So, guilt we talked about, and guilt, of course, is related to suffering, and isolated persons feel like distant, secretive, estranged, and the old is like, very isolated and not easy to approach as a person. They are inhibited, they are repressed, suppressed, subdued, limited. They feel insufficient, they feel unable or overwhelmed. So, old is something related to age, something ancient, something in the past, which is the same quality as we talked about before with being stuck in the past. Time and chronology is a strong element in the old. They are concerned about time. They feel time is limiting them. It's not enough time. They are feeling I'm getting old and I'm approaching death. Things are constricting me. Time is constricting me. So, as you can see, the old has some words which are in bold. Those words are key words. It's something hard, structured with a clear surface. It can feel stuck. There's a black, the night, the death, or even fear of those things. The old, the time. There is a coldness, constriction, and slowness. They feel isolated and inhibited. And as a person, they are observing, serious, rigid. They have control, or they can be ascetic or even feel guilt. These are main qualities describing the archetype, the old. It can be a person, it can be a plant, an animal, some phenomenon. It can be a piece of art that is like predominantly expressing these qualities. You can see the archetype, the old, all over in nature, in human relationships. It can be your boss, it can be your partner that is perceived as dominated by the old. Thank you for listening.